OK， 好，那今天我们做了一个新的尝试啦，就是说不是由 Dennis 跟大家做一个比较正式一点的这个 presentation，那我们今天就用这个对谈的方式我待会会提一些问题，那由 Dennis 来就这些问题提出他的一些这个看法、说法或解答那我想比较能够帮助大家就一些特别的这些议题能够得到更多的一些 insight 了Hi Dennis, thank you for your presence to today's 2025 Taiwan CDP pre-launch event. In order to help our honored guests to know more about CDP, I will ask you some questions. Okay. The first one, 我先会就请教他怎么看这个当前这个全球永续市场的一个发展的一个前景，然后the first question is how would you assess the global sustainability market at present?
Hello. So first, I must apologize that we're going to do this in English because I said that this morning, but I learned a little more during the day. 我不可以说中文，这是所有的我的中文现在。Unless we're going to do this in 广东话, then we're doing this in English. My assessment of the global sustainability landscape right now. Let's say it out loud. You're thinking politics. And the thing about politics, anywhere in the developed world, or there is elections going on all the time, is that it doesn't change the underlying scientific situation that we're in. Although it's clear that when we speak as a global NGO about to North America, then some of the respondents who deal with us, the finance that deals with us, they are being quieter. They have to be quieter because they are surrounded by a lot of noise. But they have also spent many years already recognizing that environmental science is telling us that the world is changing. And they've already accepted that environmental impact and environmental risk equals commercial risk and financial risk. And just because some politics has changed, has not changed the number of companies who are still dedicated to the idea of measuring environmental risk, disclosing environmental risk, discovering commercial benefit from it, and acting on it. Let me tell you a story which is not about a big company for a minute. I'm new to this the area of sustainability, and 3 years ago I met a company. I met the chief sustainability officer of a small medium enterprise, a small company, and that small company was from a rich family. That rich family had 4 generations of wealth from motor oil. Their motor oil went into F1 cars, racing cars, and they were rich because of this. And they hired a chief sustainability officer in this decade. And that chief sustainability officer had to go to the family board and explain, why did you hire me? Why is this a thing? Somebody somewhere, a young person in the family, thought this was a good idea, but the rest of the family was wondering why. They went along to that board and said, do you know what's changing in the world? Electric vehicles are coming. Do you know what electric vehicles do not need? Motor oil. at which point the family realized that the environment is changing, customer preferences are changing, and their wealth that's built on motor oil is not forever. They need to adapt to the new world. And environmental risk to them has been commercial risk, has become family future risk, has been something that they must adapt to. And every company in here, every company in the world is also open to technological risk, legal risk, transition risk, the climate and environmental risk, which is all simply translating through to your companies, your companies and your business. So that's my assessment. Nothing fundamentally has changed about the fight that we are up against and how companies need to measure so that they can manage.
Okay.
就政治的因素啊，是不是会主导我们对这个永续的一个前进？那 Dennis 刚刚也举一个例子啊，他在拜访一个家族企业，有4代的4个世代的这个家族的管理的一个基金，然后他们的主要的财富的来源来自于提供给 F1 这个赛车的机油，但他们最近聘雇了一个永续长，但他的能够永续长可以说服他们这个家族基金继续为什么要关注这件事情？很简单假设我们现在未来的趋势就是电动车，电动车不需要什么，就是不需要机油。那未来我们下一个世代的财富会这样从哪里来？所以回到我们的揭露回到我们的永续的议题，其实我们还是基线最基本面临到的一个风险，它还是跟我们商业有关的一个风险不只是这个电动车行业、机油的行业。其实我们所听到很多的企业它所面临的是法规的风险、客户的这个偏好的风险改变的风险所以我们认为在 CDP 或者是在我们的评估这个对目前趋势法规对于我们商业所造成的这个风险，这个大致的趋势还是不受我们现在政治的影响。
Yeah. Okay. Let's move the second question. Can you talk about the changes within CDP over the past year?
很多 changes in the past year. That's a little more of my 中文。Let me recap what changed in 2024 that I know you've lived and breathed. There was the bringing together of our 3 themes of water security and forestry and climate change all into one integrated climate questionnaire that's fit for big companies. Still adapts to the kind of big company that you are. If you come in and you're a steel company, then you are confronted by steel-specific questions, cement, then cement questions, food and beverage, agriculture, financial services will get financed emissions questions. So it's still adaptive, but it is one big, full corporate questionnaire. And the reason for that, the reason it was necessary, is that we couldn't continue to duplicate the amount of information that we were gathering. That was a redundant extra questioning that came with each theme when some of these things were basically the same. At the same time, we introduced an SME questionnaire. And this is fit for purpose for first-time disclosures who are smaller in size, are less advanced on their environmental journey, need simpler language, don't need high concepts, don't need so much detail. It's also right for some of the suppliers in your supply chains. When you are big companies and you have much of your risk down in your supply chains, where your scope 3 is, then SME questionnaire is fit for purpose down there. Then there is the alignment with IFRS. Some 30 jurisdictions with 55% of the GDP of the world are now shortly going to be or already have adopted IFRS S1, S2. So our question process has aligned to ISSB, just like we aligned originally with TCFD at the very beginning, and we drove the adoption of TCFD at scale. Even now, when TNFD is brand new, then without any change, CDP already gets you 40% of the way towards TNFD. That's just the changes in question, because we also obviously changed the entire portal experience. Perhaps this was too much change. This was a lot of change in a very short amount of time. We were ambitious. The challenge we're up against is massive, is the environment. But the way that it panned out was not something that we were happy about, and we do acknowledge that this caused trouble. And because of that, then it's important to us, and we do now have our senior management, my team visiting, going out and meeting companies continuously to make sure that we understand what you need, what your pain points are, so that you can feed back and we can take that back and make sure that we adjust to you and make things easier and make things more stable for you. Because here's the good news. The good news is, as you heard my CEO, Sherry, say, this year is going to be a year of stability. There will be no major changes to the questionnaire. There will be no major changes to the scoring methodology. This is very important to us. This doesn't mean that other things haven't changed in the background, but the user experience is the priority matter for us now, is to keep the changes to the technical side to an absolute minimum unless we are correcting something that was wrong, and making sure that the portal and stability is of utmost confidence for you. And that's the good news about the changes last year and how it will feed through to 2025.
去年的话，我们很多的改变啊，就包含说我们的把问卷啊不同主题，因为中间有非常的多的重复的问题，我们把它化繁为整啊，以适应这个多环境主题的问卷。同时呢，我们也有新的一个符合我们目标的，就是推出的中小企业的问卷，它是不只是问题变得更少，而且它是在整个询问的一个方式、评分的方式是会更简洁，然后更容易被我们的使用者所了解啊。那针对比较资源比较缺少的中小企业所设计。那另外一方面呢，我们呢又在2024年又跟这个 IFRS 的 S2 啊去做对齐啊，这三大的变化呢本身都集中在问卷本身。那2024年的改变又不只是在问卷本身，连我们的平台也做得非常多的改变。那我们知道，就是 CDP 有非常野心的目标，但是确实呢，我们在执行上面，我们去年有非常多的我们自问没有达到我们的野心，然后也有收到非常多的我们的使用者的建议、反馈、批评、指教。那我们现在也很努力的去走出去，希望去更把这个我们的利害关系人这个使用者的想法，我们也会吸收回来。那这也是促成的说，我们刚刚您听到我们的 CEO 的说法，今年就是讲求稳定，2025年。CDP 不做任何问卷还有评分方法的改变，我们在致力于提升我们平台的使用者的体验。
Okay, the third question is we still talk about the changes, but we will looking forward. What change both within CDP and globally are you expecting over the next 12 months?
The thing about CDP is that it grew from 3 young people It was the idea of 3 young people in the year 2000, and it has already lived through an awful lot of change. Not much of which I was aware of, because I've only been in this field of sustainability. I've only been in CDP for 3 years, and I've only been aware of the field of sustainability for 3 years as well. But CDP has lived through the introduction of TCFD, the negotiation of the Paris Agreement, the coming together of the CDSB and the VRF and the SASB into ISSB, the generation of TNFD. I'd said before, ISSB, apart from coming together very quickly for a standard, for an accounting standard, is now adopted by 30 odd jurisdictions, 55% of global GDP. It's immensely powerful at speed. 500 large organizations are becoming early adopters of TNFD because of the climate science evolves. People start recognizing the interplay between climate and nature, and faster, then we have to address these things. And the point about CDP is to get that knowledge, get that data, and then put it into the hands of people to make decisions. And I go through all of that kind of change to say that part of last year was to build the platform that we need to be ready for change. You've already heard the good news. There will be no change this year except for stability, but it is ready for change because we don't know what is going to happen in the next 12 months. It would be foolish of me to try and guess what's going to happen in the next 12 months. But there's 2 things that we could probably predict. And those 2 things are that regulation will become more and more embraced. It will spread further and further. The regulations that have already been adopted or being negotiated at speed, they're already way beyond that we could have predicted 1 or 2 years ago. If you'd asked me this question 1 or 2 years ago, who was seeing FRAG, who was seeing the omnibus, who was seeing the CSRD, you can barely keep up. So regulation will come, it will be complicated, it will sometimes say, I'm right for SMEs, do me, I'm right for the more developed world, do me. And it will be complex. So regulation is one thing that probably will change. And the second thing to know is that the planet is not going to wait. The past 10 years have only seen a continuing upswing in the hottest years on planet Earth since records began. Every single year, every single summer, we see more headlines. Unprecedented heat wave, hotter and hotter, never been this hot before. At a certain point, then you have to go, well, that's not a surprise anymore. It's just, it is happening more and more. So those are really the 2 ways that I would answer this. We are ready for change, but exactly what's going to change, I can only tell you the big pictures. The big pictures are probably regulation will keep coming. So be ready for it by disclosing to CDP and disclosing to CDP well. And scientifically, we are getting in a deeper and deeper hole. So the work that you do is urgent, and we thank you for it.
提示了我们2025年就是稳定性啊，但是这个也是提供我们更好的一个基础，为了应对未来的变化啊。所以如果假设是展望2026年，其实我们会说，我们现在就是已经有一个基础来确保我们可以应对2026年的变化。但是如果乃至于我们放眼我们这个周遭不变的事，就是我们的法规 政策会一直在变啊，有可能是有时候会考量 SME， 有时候又考量的发展中的国家的情景，有可能变严格，有可能又被拉扯啊。这个是变化就是永远不变的事情。那另外的话，我们所看到的气候的风险还是持续的增加，包含我们的温升也是持续的上升。我们看到的是未来12个月依然是这样子一个情况，所以我们现在就是做好能够应对变化的一个基础。
Okay, so we are going to the last question. Where does CDP come into all this? Do you think CDP's role has changed?
I think that CDP's role has become more and more important. It is, in fact, it is more and more important that we communicate the power of CDP, the organization that essentially invented environmental transparency 25 years ago when nobody cared about this thing. The organization that invented scoring 16 years ago when nobody had ever heard of it. And one of the things that we are doing, apart from talking to the market, talking to clients and customers about what you need, is also finding insights from the data that we have, the body of data that we have. Yes, we give it back to academia. Yes, we give it back to governments. Yes, we give it back to regulators. But we also do our own analysis. And one of the analyses that we did this year and was the first corporate health check, the inaugural, because it will be updated on a yearly basis from now on, corporate health check, which we launched in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And we were on stage next to a scientist who is famous in sustainability fields, the Dr. Johan Rockström of the Potsdam Institute. And the Potsdam Institute has put out scientific analyses on a yearly basis about the planetary boundaries. And the planetary boundaries are identified resource limitations that planet Earth needs and that humans and society needs to thrive. And they are water, they are climate change, they are ocean health, they are biodiversity, they are phosphorus, they are nitrogen, and all of these aspects from a scientific basis about how society needs to live within boundaries. And it's not great reading if you read the scientific assessment of the environment. If there's 9 different boundaries to try and stay safe within, there are 6 where society is already breaking the safe limit. But companies and the economy are in fact the thing that has given us the educations and the lives that we have, because individually we couldn't have been as successful as we are in your own personal life, and we wouldn't be as rich as we are if we didn't have companies amplifying each individual's behavior. And so companies, the data that you gather through corporate disclosure is actually going towards the sister publication to the planetary health check, the planetary boundaries health check of Dr. Rockström. CDP put out our findings this year, which tell us that only 1 in 10 companies actually has a climate target. And then of those climate targets, only 1 in 3 companies is actually keeping up with their climate targets. What that tells us is that more ambition is needed. And we wouldn't know this kind of measurement of how companies were doing unless we gathered the data that CDP has gathered. So we feed that back so that entire countries, entire continents can make the right decisions. We go along to COP armed with this kind of information, because to each country we say you need a whole of economy approach to fixing your economy, bringing it in line with net zero goals. The companies have to act with the banks, have to act with the regulators, have to act with the government, all together to go in the same direction, and every country has to pull its weight. And that is what CDP is still dedicated to doing, is the largest environmental database of primary corporate reported information in the world, growing every year for 25 years and still growing, is getting into the right hands to make the right decisions.
的角色就是把数据，然后拿给数据的使用者啊。但我们也是在从这些变化中去重新定位 CDP 的角色，包含就说从今年开始 CDP 把这个数据跟这个科学家包含就是说在就是去发明的这个我们的行星的边界 planetary boundary 的科学家，然后跟用这个数据去说明我们企业的环境行动跟我们的整个行星地球所可以支持的边界，到底我们所做的这些决策能不能支持我们的这个行星更为我们所在的这个地球更为永续。当然我们也是从数据也看到，我光是在台湾的企业，只有1/10的企业如果它是有回复 CDP 的完整版问卷的，回复给投资者的1/10的企业，它的目标是有包含的气候还有这个自然的。然后呢，同时呢，只有约大概是35% 的企业，它的所设定的目标，然后它是有循序渐进去达成它的目标的。所以很清晰的讯息告诉我们，我们需要带动更多的企业，而且他们的行动步伐必须要更大才可以去支持才可以我们在科学的面前还可以持续的去证明说我们的行动仍然有效。
好，OK， 那我们就准备这4个题目请 Dennis 来分享他个人的一些看法。那是不是现场我们开放几个问题，看是不是有先进想要就教或是就刚刚 Dennis 的这些资讯提出您的 comment。那一位。
Hi, Dennis. I'm Josephine from ERM. I would like to have a question on the CDP biodiversity and plastic models. Whether there will be a timetable for these 2 models being scored, because now we are test running these models for 2 years, and then I think corporate they are already preparing for this through doing TNFD, etc. And then we also understand that there will be alignment between TNFD and CDP questionnaire. But then we are still waiting for the scoring methodology, and we don't know whether the scoring methodology will be released before it is actually scored. And then we would like to see whether CDP has any suggestion or recommendation for corporates to be more well prepared.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to commit our scoring team here to exactly when specific questions may or may not be scored. I know that perhaps in the past, never mind last year, big change to the entire questionnaire, then there was a lot going on. But prior to that, we did occasionally introduce questions. Sometimes those questions would stick, and sometimes those questions would, after a little while, go, nobody's interested in this. It's not what the data users actually need. If the kind of questions that we start gathering, and we start gathering trends and time series of data become important, then we will look to score and incentivize that kind of behavior. This year, we're making minimal changes to either the question and the scoring, and that's why I'm not in a position to say on behalf of our scoring team, which is a very, very smart team, as is the content team, designers of new questionnaires, what will be coming right now. To your point about alignment with TNFD, then it is another thing that we are working towards, but it's important to know we're not doing it this year. But that's what is keeping our content and questionnaire design people busy.
我们刚刚的提问呢，是关于说我们CDP 已经2年在塑胶跟生物多样性3年的生物多样性的问题，什么时候会进行评分？那 Denise 这边也是说，如果假设是代表 CDP 的评分团队，我们的评分团队其实没有很大，所以呢，其实我们现在能够对外承诺，就是今年这些题组是没有评分的。然后呢，而且我们 CDP 总是在于说，当我们觉得是收集到了足够的一个资讯，而且我们看到我们的数据使用方真的是在于需要去推动这个数据的品质，或者是提升整个在可能塑胶或者是生物多样性方面呢，有更关键性的一个决策的一个转折的时候，我们才会去带动这个评分的一个机制在但是确实是说，今年我们2025年是没有评分的。
好，时间关系，我想我们就只开放这一个问题那我们是不是再次谢谢 Dennis 的这个分享，跟他的一些这个洞察的一些资讯提供给大家。那借用大家的掌声，谢谢 Dennis。Thank you, Dan.
Thank you to Mr. Wang and Mr. Moore for providing valuable insights into CDP's strategy direction. Please feel free to return to your seat. 让我们掌声谢谢莫秘书长及 Dennis， 也谢谢婉瑜的总结。相信大家从这场对谈中的内容能了解 CDP 的发展方向，以及希望大家共同迈进的目标。